I used to be the person who'd get a tiny garden nick, and somehow it turned into a 3-day, why is this still angry situation. Then I built what I call a backyard pharmacy, just a few safe, easy-to-identify plants that can support basic skincare for minor scrapes and irritation, plus 2 simple prep methods that actually work. A poultice for right now and a salve for next time. Quick reminder, I'm not a medical professional. This is educational, and this is for minor, superficial issues only if a wound is deep, dirty, gaping, or bleeding won't stop with steady pressure. Get proper medical care. Welcome back to Golden Garden How-Tos. Stay to the end because I'll share my 2-jar system that keeps a calendula salve shelf-stable for months and costs just a few dollars per tin. If you enjoy practical garden how-tos, hit like, subscribe, and comment pharmacy so I know to make a full backyard first aid series. Hack 1. Build the first aid patch with only 2 anchor plants. I keep my first aid patch ridiculously simple, Yarrow and Calendula as my anchors. Yarrow is a hardy perennial in many climates, and Calendula is easy to grow almost anywhere as an annual, which means you can start this even in a container on a balcony. Why it matters is consistency. When you're stressed and you've just nicked a finger pruning roses you don't want to maybe plant, you want a plant you can identify with confidence. I plant Yarrow in a dry, sunny edge and Calendula closer to irrigation, and I can harvest both in under 3 minutes. Seed cost in my area is about $3, $5 per packet, and in 1 2x4 footbed, I get enough Calendula petals for 6-10 small tins of salve per season, depending on how often I pick. Hack 2. The safety rule that prevents the biggest backyard pharmacy mistake. Here's the rule I follow. If I cannot identify a plant with 100% certainty, I don't use it, period. This matters most with Yarrow, because white flowering umbels can have dangerous lookalikes in the wild. When I harvest Yarrow, I only use plants I intentionally planted from a labeled source, and I keep them separate from any volunteer mystery umbel that pops up. I also use a simple 3-check system: the correct leaf shape, the correct stem characteristics, and the correct flower structure. If even one is off, it's a no. This one habit costs $0, takes 10 seconds, and prevents a serious mistake. Practical tip: if you forage at all, do it with a local expert or extension office. Once one guided walk can save you years of risky guessing. Hack 3. Yarrow stop the nick poultice for minor bleeding the clean way. When I say Yarrow can help with bleeding, I'm talking about tiny, surface-level nicks, like the kind you get from a tomato cage or pruning shears. First, I rinse the cut with clean running water and apply steady pressure with a clean cloth for a full 60 seconds. If it's still lightly oozing, I make a fast poultice. I crush 1 small Yarrow leaf cluster between clean fingers for 10-15 seconds until it's juicy. Then I place it on gauze, not directly on a dirty wound, and hold it in place for 2 minutes. In a lab-style animal model, Yarrow extract shortened bleeding time by roughly a third, which matches why it's been used traditionally, but that doesn't replace real first aid. If bleeding won't stop after 10 minutes of pressure, if you're on blood thinners, or it's a deep cut, stop experimenting and get care. Hack 4. Harvest Calendula like a pro. More petals, less moisture, better salve. Calendula is my skin comfort plant, but the quality of your salve starts with how you harvest. I pick Calendula late morning after dew dries, and I only take the flower heads that are fully open. Then I separate petals and do a quick dry on a screen for 3-7 days, depending on humidity, until they feel papery, not cool or flexible. Why it matters? Damp petals can mold in oil, and once oil is contaminated, you've basically made a bacteria buffet. My simple measurement is weight loss. 1 loosely packed cup of fresh petals drops to about a third of that volume when properly dried. Time frame-wise, I can dry a week's harvest while still picking daily. Practical tip: label the drying tray with the date and keep it away from cooking steam. Kitchen humidity slows drying and raises mold risk. Hack 5. Make calendula infused oil that actually extracts 2 methods I use. Calendula oil is the base for almost everything I make. I use 2 infusion options depending on patience. The slow method is best. I fill a jar about halfway with dried calendula petals, Cover with 1–2 inches of olive or sunflower oil and let it sit 3–4 weeks, shaking every couple of days. The fast method is for I need it this weekend. I set the jar in a water bath and keep it warm, not frying around 40–50 degrees Celsius for 2–3 hours, then strain. Why it matters. Infusion quality affects how soothing the final salve feels and how well it spreads. Cost-wise, 1 cup of carrier oil plus homegrown petals usually comes out under $2, $3 per cup of finished infused oil. Practical tip: strain through a fine cloth and squeeze my yield jumps about 10–15% just from thorough pressing. Hack 6. The Calendula salve formula that doesn't melt in summer or crack in winter. Here's the formula I recommend because it's simple, repeatable, and stable. 1 cup, 240 milliliters, calendula infused oil to 1 ounce, about 28 grams, beeswax. I melt the beeswax gently, stir in the infused oil, and pour into clean tins. Now the test result I care about is texture. At a normal room temperature around 22 degrees Celsius, this ratio sets into a salve that holds shape in a tin but still melts on skin in about 3–5 seconds of rubbing. If your home is hot, add 5 grams more beeswax. If it's cold and you want it softer, reduce beeswax by 5 grams. A randomized clinical trial on acute hand and finger wounds reported faster epithelialization with a calendula extract compared to control care, which is why calendula is such a staple. But again, this is for minor skin support, not serious injuries. Hack 7. Turn Yarrow plus calendula into a field salve for scrapes and windburn. This is my go-to working in the yard tin. I combine calendula-infused oil with a smaller portion of Yarrow-infused oil, about 80/20 calendula to Yarrow, then I use the same beeswax ratio as before. Why it matters is function. Calendula brings comfort for irritated skin, and Yarrow has a long tradition in first aid contexts, so the blend becomes my general-purpose barrier salve for superficial scrapes, cracked knuckles, and friction spots from tools. In real life, the measurable benefit for me is how often I reapply. With plain oil, I reapply every 30–45 minutes because it disappears. With salve, I'm usually good for 2–3 hours because the wax slows evaporation. Practical tip: make a tiny 15 milliliters tin for your pocket. If you actually carry it, you'll use it consistently. Hack 8. Plantain poultice, the best splinter helper that grows like a weed. If I could only add one more plant to this episode, it's plantain, the common lawn plant, not the banana-looking fruit. For a splinter or a sting on intact skin, I rinse the area, then I crush a clean plantain leaf until it's glossy and green, and I press it onto gauze as a quick poultice for 10 minutes. Why it matters is practicality. Plantain is widespread and fast. My numbers test is swelling reduction time on mild mosquito bites. I often feel the itch back off within 5–10 minutes, which is exactly what I want when I'm still working outside. Cost is basically zero if it's in your yard, but identification still matters, so don't use it if you're unsure. Practical tip: if you're sensitive, do a patch test on your inner arm first. Asteraceae and other plant allergies are real. Hack 9. Plantain drawing salve in 12 minutes, a safe, simple version. For a longer-lasting option than a poultice, I make a basic plantain salve using the same structure, infused oil plus beeswax. I infuse dried plantain leaf in oil. Strain, then use the familiar 1 cup oil to 1 ounce beeswax ratio. For a drawing-style salve, some people add powders, but I keep it simple for skin friendliness and consistency. My measurable test is spread. I aim for a salve that covers a quarter-size area with a pea-sized dab. If it takes more than that, it's too stiff. Reduce beeswax slightly next batch. Time frame. If you already have infused oil, the salve itself is a 10–12 minute process from melting to pour. Practical tip: date your tin and set a conservative shelf life of 6–12 months, especially if your herbs weren't bone dry. Hack 10. Aloe for minor burns, the kitchen plant that earns its space. Aloe is not a cure-all, but as a kitchen plant, it's incredibly useful for minor heat irritation. If I brush a hot pan or get a mild sun flare, I cool the skin with running water first, then apply fresh aloe gel in a thin layer. Why it matters. Cooling and moisture can reduce that tight, angry feeling, and there's published evidence suggesting aloe may help healing in first and second-degree burns, though products vary and evidence isn't perfect. My practical measurement is comfort. The sting usually drops noticeably within a few minutes for minor cases. Important safety line: never use aloe as your plan for severe burns, blistering over large areas, or anything involving the face. Seek medical care. If you grow aloe outdoors, remember it hates frost, so in many zones it's better as a pot plant you can bring in. Hack 11. The wash, then salve. Rule: how I avoid trapping dirt in a wound. This is the unglamorous hack that matters most. Salves can trap whatever is under them. So my rule is always wash, then salve. And I keep the steps consistent. For a minor scrape, I rinse for 20-30 seconds. Gently wash surrounding skin with mild soap. Pat dry with clean gauze. Then apply a paper-thin layer of Calendula salve. My numbers test is redness spread. If the redness expands beyond the original scrape over the next 24 hours, if heat increases, or if there's worsening pain, I stop home treatment and treat it as a medical issue. Practical tip: if you're making salves for first aid use, sanitize tins, don't double dip dirty fingers, and consider using small batches so you're not recontaminating the same container all season. Hack 12. The 2-jar system: how I keep my backyard pharmacy ready year-round. This is the system I promised at the end. I keep 2 jars labeled and dated. One is Calendula infused oil, and the second is finished Calendula salve. The oil stays in a dark cabinet, and I only open it when my hands are clean. The salve lives where I actually need it, by the garden gloves, in the kitchen, and in a small tin in my outdoor kit. The measurable benefit is speed. When I need it, I'm using it in under 30 seconds, which means I'm more consistent. Cost-wise, a 1-pound bag of beeswax can make dozens of tins. So per tin, I'm usually around $2, $4, depending on your oil and containers. Final safety tip: label your tins with ingredients, especially if you share with friends, because allergies happen. So that's my backyard pharmacy approach. Keep identification strict, build around Yarrow for tiny nick support and Calendula for skin comfort, and rely on 2 formats you'll actually use: a fast poultice and a shelf-stable salve. If you try just one thing this week, make the Calendula oil, because once you have that, the salve is basically a 10-minute finish. Tell me in the comments which hack you'll try first, and also comment what country you're watching from. I love seeing where the Golden Garden How-Tos community is growing. If this was helpful, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications.